long-term complications or problems that I see patients complain about. So really you have to remember why patients had all-on-4 done in the beginning. And it's across the board, it's the same. Patients always want something that's going to look good. They want something that's going to function super well, meaning they can chew and eat anything they want. It's going to be comfortable in their mouth, easy to clean. And most importantly, it's going to last long term. Everyone wants it to last the rest of their life. And so when we don't meet these 4 needs, that it looks good, that it functions well, that it's comfortable, and it's going to last, this is when patients get really upset. So let's talk about those 4 things when they're not met. So first thing about looking good. A lot of doctors have good intentions, but I say this all the time, good intentions don't equal good dentistry. Sometimes I met a patient just this morning actually that came all the way from Washington, and matter of fact, it was a couple sisters, and they both had all-on-4 done, and the results were just not good enough for them, and they were really kind of left wanting. They felt like the devices were too bulky, that they looked fake, they looked like denture teeth, and so they were coming to me to see what I thought, and it was a great privilege. And actually, they're gonna be coming back, both of them, to do some surgery here in a little while. Super excited about that. But I see that quite often where patients are coming in saying, is it supposed to look like this? So what causes a all-on-4 bridge to look bad? Number one is if it's made, what type of material it's made out of is so critical. Does it give good cosmetics? When the light hits it, does it have a natural look? Is it too white? Does it look like a bathtub? Or does it hit it a certain way where it looks natural? Everybody wants a Hollywood smile, but sometimes a doctor, again, good intentions, lets a patient pick teeth that are way too white and just don't look natural. And in the moment they like them and they go and they're around their friends and family, and what happens is they end up being reminded over and over again how much their device doesn't look natural. So the appearance is so critical. And that's why I recommend to all my patients to interview multiple doctors, ask them for like their resume in a sense, go to their website, look for before and afters, look for patients that look like you, that have the same type of problems that you have. If you're a patient that has a really bad grinding habit, you want to talk to your doctor about that. Talk to them in great depth of like, what have you done with your patients to manage people like me? And I think one of the big problems with when we're talking about overall look and appearance of an all-on-4 bridge is this whole concept of teeth in 24 hours. I see them popping up all over the place, and I'm not here to judge because, again, like I said, intentions might be nothing but the best, but the outcome so often can be less than desired. I have a couple places here locally that really advertise really hard about get your permanent teeth within 24 hours of your surgery. And here's the problem with that. A lot of my patients, they haven't had a nice smile for a long, long time. And so anything you put in there is gonna make them super happy. And so 24 hours later, you're gonna put the teeth in, and they may have a really positive reviews. But as they heal up and as the gums start to shrink, as they start to chew and eat, honestly, they put the final device in and you can't make any changes to it. And this is why I minimally will do a 2-week period. Like the fastest I'll move is 10 to 14 days. But it gives me enough time to show patients a couple different types of devices, gives them time to actually wear them, to see how they feel, allows the inflammation time to go down so you can see how the lip sits. So at the end of the day, I think that so often as Americans and really as a whole world community, we want something as fast as we can. And I think that I'm a big proponent of, I don't want to waste time, but I want to take time to get clear on what you want. If you don't know what you want, that's the hardest thing to hit, because I might be heading north and you might be wanting to go northwest. And I've had patients where I finished, or this is early on in my career, but finished a device and I was just ecstatic. I thought it was the best thing in the world, and they were just like, oh, they're okay. And I never live with that. If something's okay, it's like, okay, well, tell me what's wrong. Let's work on this because I must have missed it. And until they're just so excited, I keep on changing them. So, but if you don't know what you want and you don't communicate that to the doctor, that's a big problem. And so, as dentists, we're not necessarily great at communication. Most of us aren't great, and I think that I'm always trying to get better, and I talk a lot. That's kind of my thing. I love people and I love helping people, and so I do communicate. Sometimes I over communicate, but a lot of doctors aren't that way, and so they may say one thing and you may interpret it a different way. And especially with complex treatment like this, where there's a lot of dentists out there that don't even understand the parts and pieces and the concepts of all-on-4, let alone a consumer that has no dentistry and no background in dentistry. And so, but I think appearance is probably one of the biggest problems I see when I have patients coming in from other offices. They want me to redo their denture or redo their device because they're just not happy with the way it looks. And sometimes we can just make another device, and sometimes we have to redo the whole surgery. Like these gals that are these awesome gals that are so funny. They just make me smile. I think about them. They're just a riot. They have fun, and but it's unfortunately the implants that were placed were not in the right position, and the implants were too small. And I don't feel comfortable building on top of a device or a framework or a foundation that isn't super solid. And so I told them, if I'm going to take the case, I really want to just put new implants that I believe are going to last 3, 4, 5 decades, and so that's really frustrating for some patients that don't have the income. So it's so critical that you interview multiple doctors. It's like dating, you gotta meet a few before you know what you like. And the more you date, the more you understand the concept of all-on-4 and implants. You understand when a doctor is being more forthright. There's a difference between a shy doctor and a doctor that's just maybe trying to get the sell, and I'm the opposite. I over communicate. Sometimes I convince people not to do it. I want everyone to be so completely informed that that some people they'll go somewhere else, and that's okay with me. I truthfully I want the people that want it done right. So okay, I digress. Let's get on to the next part. So the first thing, like I already talked about, does it look good cosmetically? Does it meet their standards? The second thing is function. So one of the big problems I see with all-on-4 bridges or smiles is that the occlusion, how the teeth come together, isn't good. And what do I mean by that? Well, the doctors oftentimes will do a lot of crown and bridge occlusion, how those teeth come together, is different than implants. Because when you're underneath a crown has nerves and there's more sensation, and so a patient can handle more steep edges, more rugged terrain in a sense. When it comes to all-on-4, you have to really be careful that you don't give someone teeth that are so sharp, that are so rugged in a sense, that they end up grinding their teeth a ton. And so this is, again, the reason why I like to have patients in temporaries. All grinders in my practice, or clenchers, they're always going to be in a temporary for at least 3 to 4 months. Why? Because a lot of times I need to work out the occlusion, how the teeth come together. And I have to try a few things to make sure we end up in a place where it's stable. And so, but problems I see with, again, going back to function and chewing when it comes to all-on-4 bridges is that oftentimes patients can't eat certain foods that they really were looking forward to, like corn on the cob, salad, lettuce. And again, the reason why is because when the teeth are put together, sometimes the way the teeth come together, they don't allow the patient to get end to end with the front teeth. And so it's really critical to take the time. Whenever I give a device, I always will adjust it in the moment, and then I'll bring the patient back at least one more time, sometimes twice, just to see how they're doing with eating. And I want to know. And I'm like, hey, go practice, come back. And why do I do that? Because again, I want to keep the teeth as sharp and as rugged as possible. But if they're having issues with certain foods, then we need to adjust them to make them so that the teeth can come together and they can be the most efficient. And so that you can eat the chicken, you can eat the steak, you can eat the things you love the most. The 4th of July is going to be epic, Okay, so that goes to function. The other thing about function too is, so your teeth function as your way to eat food. They function as a way to communicate and smile and attract people into your life. And then the third thing is speech. And so one of the things about all-on-4 transformations is that we have to be careful to make sure that we don't violate some of the phonetics, which means basically how the tongue contacts the teeth and the gums to give certain sounds. And so what I've seen oftentimes, the doctors will take out teeth and they lose their baseline, meaning they lose where the gums and the teeth met, like the borders of where the teeth were, where the patient was saying the S's, the F's. They lose that, and then they recreate something that looks beautiful, but the patient, it's like either sometimes there's too much space and sometimes there's not enough space. It's a really weird dynamic. And so so patients come back, and if they've been in temps and then the final and they've been out a year and they can't say certain words and they're kind of slurring their words together, that's a big problem. I do see that quite often. I get a lot of questions about it. And so one of the things that makes it unique is that when I do my surgeries and I plan them, I never do a surgery without a plan in place. And with the way that things are right now, we have a digital pathway that we didn't have a few years ago. And it's so great because we can literally overlay your original teeth with the temporaries, with the finals. It's like when I'm putting your finals in, I can actually go back and see exactly how the tissue was when you had natural teeth. And I can look and see, okay, I need to make sure I add a little bit more material here. I need to take away some material there because this is how it was. So again, phonetics and speeches can be a big problem. And if a doctor hasn't done a lot of all-on-4 cases, oftentimes this is where they struggle. Okay, so let's go to number 3. One of the biggest problems I see also with all-on-4 patients from other offices, and early on when I was more of a novice all-on-4 doctor, was basically just the comfort of the patient. And what I mean by that is there's a cosmetic aspect, but there's also just a comfort aspect where when you're chewing and eating food, does it feel natural? Do you have to do extreme movements to be able to chew up your food? Are you getting food caught inside of underneath the device? That's not comfortable. You have to go and constantly water pick. When they're speaking, again, if they're having a tough time and they're biting their cheeks, or they're biting their lip, that's another thing that can happen. The comfort of are you stressed about having conversations because you're going to bite your lip while in front of someone? Or are you afraid that when you're speaking that you're not going to be able to communicate well? And so patient comfort is often hard with temps. I tell people that temps are different than the finals. I expect speech problems more in temps because it's so foreign. I expect food to get caught underneath the device more because as the gums heal, there's a space that develops there, and that's why we take new impressions at the end. But when you're in your final device, these are things that should have been worked out. And so I always I'm just a really big proponent of taking the time to communicate, get feedback. I give binders to every one of my patients, and I say, all your questions go in here. And you're going to bring this binder with you every time you come into my office. And I want you to write down and keep track of the thoughts that you're having, the questions you have, so I can answer them as they come. So, okay, the last one is a really important one. It's probably, I would argue, aside from cosmetics, it's the number one. And that is long-term, patients get super frustrated when their device is breaking or having problems. It's not lasting, meaning either the implants don't last or the device doesn't last, because there's really two different parts of this. There's biologically an implant, a titanium implant that goes into the body, and then there's a device that is connected into that. And so the aspect of the titanium implants staying healthy, it's really on the patient for the most part. Meaning that you have to stay healthy, you have to clean well, you have to go to your maintenance visits. Those are things that you can't mess up or you put at risk those implants. The bridge though, that's something where it really comes down to selection. And what you really need to do is get super clear about what you want in your all-on-4 smile. So I plan on doing another video hopefully later this week, so make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can see that when it comes up. But I want to go through all the different types of zirconia, titanium, trinia, trilor, PMMAs, graphene. There's all these different types of materials out there and trying to make sense of them. Because the biggest complaint I see from other office and my own patients too, is patients that expected the device to last the rest of their life without any problems, then they start to have problems. What would be a problem? So let's say you are convinced by a doctor to get a titanium bar over the top with acrylic wrapped around it and then denture teeth that go on top. It looks gorgeous. You can chew with it, you can eat with it, your life has just changed, right? Then, a year and a half, 2 years out, you're chewing something. It could be something so simple, something so soft, and your tooth breaks. And so you're just like, oh my gosh, you're freaking out. Like, is this normal? Well, that's one of the biggest complications we see when you have like a titanium device wrapped with acrylic and denture teeth, is that under the certain stresses, a lateral movement that hits it just right, a tooth can be sheared off. And so early on in my career, I did thousands of titanium devices. And I did those primarily because at the time, zirconia wasn't beautiful enough to be able to give people the best cosmetics, right? Go back to those 4 things patients want. I'm like, I gotta knock it out of the park on that cosmetics. But long term, 3, 4, 5 years, I'd say the average time is after about 5 years, a titanium device with denture teeth on them, patients will wear those teeth so they're super flat. If you grounded your natural teeth down, it's really likely that you're going to ground the all-on-4 titanium device also. And as they flatten out, it causes problems where before, when you first got your device, when you moved your jaw back and forth, the craters or the ruggedness of the teeth would actually cause your front teeth to disclude, meaning they would come out of contact. But as the back wears down and flattens out, now you don't have that protection. And so you see patients start to break their front teeth. And so we put night guards on patients and that help. But again, still, over time, this is what happens. So to fix it, you have to go and put new back teeth in and build up the back and build the ruggedness up. We call it a retread. And again, patients don't like that. They have to pay for that. And it's frustrating for them. And so over time, that's why I kind of did less and less of those. Okay, so at the end of the day, when we're talking about the device lasting for the rest of their life, there are devices that really can. Again, still has to be a healthy patient. They definitely have to have good maintenance. They have to have good health. They have to have stellar hygiene. And then they have to have the right device. And so what I mean by that is anything that has denture teeth on it is going to wear. Anything that has a polymethyl methacrylate, PMMA is what we call it in dentistry, that's going to wear also. Okay. So what I really recommend is getting zirconia. Zirconia is the strongest material in dentistry. It also looks beautiful, and it's really, really hard. And so it's nearly impossible to break them. And so a lot of times patients, because they're moving too quick and they're not asking enough questions, they ask questions that are just kind of general questions like, are these teeth strong? And so a doctor may say, yeah, they're really strong. Well, the patient might interpret that as like, I gotta get the strongest teeth. So you have to be very direct, like, doc, are these the strongest teeth out there? Are these the zirconia devices? What's the outlook on these? I mean, do they have the clinical data to back up that this could potentially last my whole life if I keep my implants healthy. So if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And but I see people all the time. I do so many consults, and things aren't written down clearly. And then you see multiple doctors, and every doctor, there's so many names in dentistry too. It can be so confusing. We call all-on-4 a hybrid, and sometimes we'll call it, a denture, a implant denture. I mean, there's just a lot of names for it, so it can be confusing. But getting clear about what type of device. So here are the basics I'll tell you real quick. And then, like I said, subscribe to my channel because I'm going to do a video later this week. Hopefully this week, if my wife let me. she wants some time with me. I don't know why, but I love her. She's fantastic. But the main devices that we see in dentistry is, and I was rank these from the strongest down to the weakest. You'd have a zirconia monolithic at the top, and then just below that you could have a zirconia, but you could do some like porcelain veneers on top of it to make it even more translucent. Again, it's beautiful, but it starts to be more vulnerable to breaking. So below that, you would have anything that has a substructure of zirconia is going to be strong. But once you drop from there, you go into like a titanium substructure, and that's a titanium bar. It's very, very strong. But like I said, it's what wears on top of it that it's not so good. So you have titanium bars. You have a titanium. You have different materials like trinia, trilor, pectin. These are all substructures that aren't as strong as titanium, but they're still strong, and you can put something on top of them that looks beautiful. So those substructures are never beautiful. They have strength, but you have to put something on top of them to make it look beautiful. You could put lots of different things on top. You could put denture teeth, like I talked about. You could put a milled PMMA, polymethyl methacrylate teeth on top of it. You could put porcelain teeth on top of it. Some doctors do that. But at the end of the day, you're putting pieces on pieces, and that's where I feel like my experience over thousands of surgeries and implants and devices I've made, and I like one piece that's super strong that keeps it simple for the patient. So you got your zirconia, and then you got your substructures, and at the very bottom, you go back to a couple of devices that are monolithic, meaning they're all one piece, but they're not as strong as the substructures like titanium, or trinia, or trilor, or pectin. But below there, you'd have like a device that's fully like it's just all PMMA, or it could be a device that's there's some new materials coming out of Europe that haven't got quite FDA. Some doctors are using those, and they're supposed to be pretty good, and I'm excited to get my hands on those eventually. But again, it's a monolithic, meaning that you're not gluing pieces on. You're basically milling something out, and then you're kind of painting maybe a little bit of gums on there. Again, those devices are good in the sense that they are monolithic. They're not likely to break things off, but they still will wear. And I think that's the part that patients need to understand is when you're comparing apples to apples versus apples to oranges, what are you getting? I tell people that you have to do your homework, and you got to get super clear about the material that they're putting in your mouth, and what's the best prognosis, what's the best chance it's going to last the rest of your life. You've seen a lot of my patients come from all over the country, and they're really young, and so I did a patient a couple weeks ago. She's 21 years old, 22 years old, I think. And boy, what a huge responsibility on me. And so I definitely guided her towards making sure that she picked the strongest device. So let me just recap what I've talked about today. First of all-on-4, as great as it is, there's always going to be problems and complications. Okay, that's just how life is in general. Maybe you're lucky and maybe you never have a single complication. There are short-term complications that happen between surgery and getting your finals, okay? And I didn't talk about that today. What I talked about was more the long-term complications, meaning 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. I talked about how, there's really 4 things that we have to meet. There's 4 reasons why patients, spend the money, the time, and the emotional stress of doing this. That's because they want to look good. They really want to be able to, eat and chew and speak well. They want to have something comfortable in their mouth, and it has to last a long time. And when we don't meet these standards and expectations, meaning, if we're not transparent with them and we don't do enough of this, again, we could be well-intentioned doctors, but we don't get outcomes that patients would say were a success. For me, if a device lasts 5 years, that's not a success. I want my devices to last decades. And that's why I don't do anything besides zirconia. I have no problem with other doctors doing other stuff. It's just that as long as they're transparent about the fact that these may need to be replaced, or the substructure might be strong, but we may have to do a new tread on top at a certain point. And so ask lots of questions. If leave comments on below. If there's comments about something that I missed, I'll do a follow up and I'll answer more questions on it. If you're struggling with all-on-4 and you want to come in for a consultation, please do. I see a lot of patients from, like I said, all over the country. I'm very, 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 very blessed to have people travel in to see me and get my advice. And sometimes the advice is go back to the doctor and just talk better to him, communicate better. Let me coach you, let me teach you what you can do to help this doctor be successful with you. And sometimes patients think it's worth it to have their work redone here or have it done here, and it's truly a privilege. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. I love what I do. I love changing lives. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more live smile reveals. And as I continue to roll out more information, I'm going to try to give you more information this year than I have in the last 10. And so subscribe.